Hello, BookTube. Well, the day has finally come. It's election day here in America. It's the day when everybody goes to the polls and we elect a president after the worst presidential election campaign in American history. And one of the ugliest election campaigns in American history on the Republican Party side. I don't know what to say about it, especially to those of you who don't live here. I have no way to account for the rise of Donald Trump. And I have nothing but apologies for the fact that his rise is not over, no matter what happens today. Things are now sayable and doable in America that weren't before he announced his presidency, his presidential campaign. He has changed the public discourse for the worse. We saw that yesterday in a tweet from one of his highest profile surrogates, Ann Coulter, the best-selling author, who tweeted in public. This is a public sentiment that she published for the whole world to see. She's proud of it. She tweeted that if only people who had 4 grandparents who were born in America could vote, the election would be a 50-state landslide for Donald Trump. And she doesn't care. She'll laugh at it in the morning news when she's called to account for it. She'll laugh at it. She'll laugh it off. She'll say, oh, come on. Oh, come on. His favorite thing. Oh, come on. Those of you who study history will find that call for native-born grandparents familiar. It's literally Nazi Germany. It's literally the foundation of their race laws. Not metaphorically. It's not the far left saying, "Oh, you compare everything to Hitler." It is that. It's exactly that. And it was said a day before the election in public in America by someone whose book sales won't be hurt, whose public appearances won't be canceled. And I've of course watched the reaction to it. The reaction was instantaneous, and people instantaneously pointing out that would disqualify Donald Trump from voting. But also more personal. It doesn't get any more personal than someone announcing that you yourself are not an American, that you aren't a legitimate American. A tweet that says, if only people who had 4 grandparents born in America could vote, is a tweet saying only people who have 4 grandparents born in America should be able to vote. And it won't be disavowed by the candidate, and it will never be retracted by its author. And it disqualifies me as an American. It disqualifies a lot of people as American. And I've read some choice responses, especially from grandchildren of Jewish refugees who came here to escape the worst nightmare in their modern history, and are now being told that they're not American, that they shouldn't be allowed to vote. And one of the reactions I've seen on Twitter has been that this is the worst. This is, if someone is consciously parodying Nazi race laws, then that's as bad as it gets. And I read those things and I go, okay, well, you're outraged, so am I. But the candidate himself suggested that one of his followers should assassinate his opponent. And he did that in public on a podium. And if I had done that on the exact same day, if I had taken a podium on Boston Common and said the exact same thing word for word, not only would I have been arrested, I'd still be in jail. My life would be over as I knew it. And when the Secret Service approached Donald Trump and said anyone in the world would interpret that as inciting someone to assassinate Hillary Clinton, his response was, come on. And it was allowed to stand. He wasn't arrested. So it's 4 grandparents born in America is not the worst it gets. The worst it gets is authoritarian rule. The open yearning for it. Kill my opponent. Jail my enemies. That's not going away. No matter what happens at the polls, that's not going away. The fact that a huge percentage of the public could approve of that is not going away. I'm sorry to digress into politics. I actually do have a bookish reason in mind. Because I spent a little part of the morning refreshing Twitter and checking Nate Silver's blog and all the usual stuff that you do when so much is on the line. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spend the whole day doing that. I don't know how many days I have left. None of us does. I'm not going to spend the whole day doing that. So instead, I'm going to retreat into books. and that brings us back to the normal part of a BookTube channel as opposed to political ranting. And I wish that I could say that I'm going to purely escape into reading all day long. I would do, like, for instance, I got romances in the mail, brand new romances. A Date at the Altar by Kathy Maxwell, and While the Duke Was Sleeping by Sophie Jordan. And I would be willing, I haven't made a sort of an unofficial rule that I'm not going to read any fiction in November. On election day for romances, I might make an exception, but I can't, because I actually have a lot of reading to do today that's deadline related. So I can't really, much as an escape it would be. But the thing that is, I love reading nonfiction so much that it does constitute an escape for me. The reading itself constitutes an escape for me. So what I'm going to do is shut off everything and just read, and I will learn the results later, maybe tomorrow. So I wanted to show you some of what I'm going to be doing. One of the things I don't have with me here, it's a recent commission. I've been commissioned to review a fantastic commission. So a dream come true. It was my very first choice. There's a new book that translates the key Roman lives of Plutarch. He's one of my all-time favorite writers of all time, and who he's fallen out of the limelight. He used to be a best-selling ancient author. Modern audiences used to love him because he's so good to read. That doesn't happen anymore. So the fact that a new book would be coming out, I think in January, that's 5 lives from Plutarch, newly translated with a new introduction and a new preface and whatnot. That's wonderful. I think the introduction is by Mary Beard. There's a preface by James Romm. There's a new translation with notes, and it's the key lives of the book is called The Age of Caesar. So you have Julius Caesar, you have Pompey, you have Crassus, you have all the Mark Antony, I think, is in there. You have all these about 5 people who Plutarch wrote long and smart biographies of every one of them. And Plutarch, just in general, is a dream come true to read. He's fantastic. And this is a new translation of these things and a new consideration of them. I didn't think there was any chance that any editor would let me write about Plutarch. But one of them is. So, and at a very generous length, too, 2,500 words. So I'll be reading that today. And I'll also be reading, I think I have it, this thing here. Shadow Wars by Christopher Davidson, who is a cutie patootie who could really learn a thing or two, because he had to learn a thing or two about the actual mechanics of prose. This is one of the only major works of nonfiction that I've read in 2016 that was stopping me repeatedly with incorrect grammar. You don't usually see that in somebody who reads. What is it? He's a reader in politics at Durham University. He's also not that it matters. He's also a bit of a cutie patootie. But the book is incredible. I'm giving it the final go through for a review. So I'll be doing that and Plutarch, and then I've got these just came in the mail yesterday. 2 new penguins. I get new penguins in the mail. I also get, as you can tell from these papers, I get new romances in the mail. In fact, the highlight of any month for me is the box that comes with my new romances and the box that comes with my new Penguin classics. I'm perfectly willing to admit what some of you are at pains to remind me from time to time. I have a pretty good job. So it's a pretty good job when you get free romances and free Penguin classics in the mail. And every once in a blue moon, they come on the same day. Ooh. Anyway, these 2 came yesterday. There's this one, new translation of On the Aesthetic of Education of Man by Friedrich Schiller, who's he's not known to English-speaking audiences for his philosophy or his polemical tracts. He's certainly not known to me. I don't think I've ever read this. And it's a new translation, so I'll be reading that. I've always found Schiller a little trying. I lived in Germany for a time. I taught in Germany for a time, and the academics that I spent time with at all levels of academia loved him, and I just didn't see it. I've just not been able to see it. So maybe this book will do it. I find it hard to believe that any English language translation will do it, but you never know. And then there's this. Oh, there's this thing. Can you make that out? The Tales of Issei. This is it's a great work of the Heian period that I love so much because it produced the Pillar Book of Sei Shonagon and the Tale of Genji, and this is right along with them. This is another classic of that time. Let me read you. The Tales of Issei is one of the most famous and important works of Japanese literature, consisting of 125 poem tales loosely based on the life of the hero Narihira, a model lover of the Heian period. They evoke a world in which beauty and refinement were a way of life. Covering such themes as forbidden love, devotion between friends, and pleasure in nature, these lyrical episodes combine great eloquence with a subversive, experimental wit. This delightful, groundbreaking translation brings out the sophisticated humor and playfulness of the original, which has inspired Japanese art and literature for a millennium. Now, that last part I can personally attest to, because when I visited Japan, the times that I visited Japan and talked about Japanese literature with Japanese people, first of all, I was a little disappointed, as I almost always am. You talk about American literature with most Americans, and you'll be disappointed. They don't know it. They have no idea what it is. They don't know it well enough. They're certainly not proud of it. The times that I visited Japan, one time I was in scholarly company, and then it was heaven. It was absolutely delightful. All the other times I was in the company of muscular young teenagers, and they didn't know anything about their country's unbelievably rich literary history. They didn't know any more about it than muscular teenagers in America today know about it. They'd never heard of it. They didn't know. It was impossible to talk about it with them. But nevertheless, I can attest that that last part, inspired Japanese art and literature from millennium, is absolutely true. You go to museums, you read dramatic works, the echoes of Issei are everywhere. More so maybe even than Genji. And that's hard for me to admit because I like Genji better. But this is a new version of the whole thing. It's got a new introduction. It's got a new translation, tons of new notes, and that's thrilling. That's absolutely thrilling. I will be overjoyed to lose myself in this. Actually, now that I think about it, one of the only countries and one of the only contemporary countries that I have ever visited where the love of and knowledge of the country's literature was at its strongest, where cab drivers literally could quote passages, where people on the street waiting in the grocery store would be talking. You could easily get them talking about great works of literature from 2 centuries ago. Was Russia. And not just Russia, but communist Russia. It's one of the only places, now that I think about it, it's one of the only places I've ever been where the country's literature was absolutely alive on the tongues of its people. I don't know why that would be. Maybe, especially communist Russia, maybe it's for the very reason I made this video. Refuge. Taking refuge someplace from the present, away from the present. So there you have it, comrades. I will be reading 2 Penguin classics. I'll be rereading Shadow Wars, and I will be boning up on Plutarch during election day, and if I'm strong, also during election night. I'll be doing that, and I'll be doing NaNoWriMo, but I won't be refreshing news feeds. Please God, I won't be refreshing news feeds. And then I'll be back tomorrow with all sorts of bookish stuff. And one way or another, it'll all be over tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.